Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 143 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Byron. And I just started thinking, saying episode 143. I wonder if we'll ever catch up to UFC. You know, they just had UFC 200 last night. I wonder if we'll ever catch up in the amount of episodes to how many UFCs there is. I think we can catch them.
It should be possible. If we do an episode, and we have been every week, they don't do a UFC, although some of it seems like it.
Actually, they did 3 last week.
But they're not all the numbered ones, are they?
Yeah.
So that kind of helps us out. They're slowing themselves down.
Yeah. Well, we did a half of one.
We did a bonus episode, I think, one time.
Yeah. So we could be at 144, but we've only been in this for 143 weeks, so we're going to catch them. Oh
yeah, we're on their heels. Excited about this episode. This 143 is going to be a big one, Gary.
Yeah, definitely going to be a great episode. This week we have Alan Shebaro. We're going to talk to him. He's from We Defy. He's a black belt, and so he's going to have some good information from us. And
all right, yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm really happy to have Alan on the show. He's doing some great things. He's out there competing and everything, as well as helping the community, helping with the We Defy Foundation. We'll get into that, what that is. He's involved with Mission 22 as well. If you haven't heard of Joey Bozik, look into him, and I'll put links to all this stuff on the show notes as well. But a very busy guy, very active in the community, doing great things, and we're just happy to have him on the show. Gary, if we're going to ever pass episode 200 or actually pass where the UFC is once we get there, we've got to have some support from our listeners. One of the easier ways to have support is our audiobook, and hopefully it helps support you as well. It's $11.99. The money goes to help the show out, and our audiobook is called Your First Year of BJJ. It's basically it's 2.5 hours long, and I'm basically walking you through what to expect and what you're going to go through, and kind of help you get over some of the hurdles that are going to be presented in your first year. Many of these hurdles you could stumble on and not get over. So, Chapter 5 is your training schedule. A lot of us are super excited and motivated to train real hard all the time. A lot of us have lives to deal with, and we can't train all the time. And I help you kind of adjust this new thing into your life and get that set to where it's not a burden on the rest of your life, to where you have to choose between having a job and supporting my family or going to jiu-jitsu. So I think that's an important chapter that's often overlooked when you start something like this. That's going to take up a lot of time, or could take up a lot of time. But it's a very important thing to get that figured out your first year of training. So I think that's a very important chapter, Gary.
Yep, and we do want you to give up everything you've got for jiu-jitsu. So that's what we're telling you to do. No, actually, far from it. Yeah, it's Byron and I, we're part-time jiu-jitsuists, and you have to weigh your family, your job obligations, and everything else before getting in the gym. But like Byron said, that's a part that's overlooked. So you're going to have to make some tough decisions, and it's definitely something that you're definitely going to go through somewhere down the road.
Yeah, Gary, before we get too far into the show, I want to give a shout-out to our Patreon supporters. We have Rob, Sean, Craig, and Alexander. Thank you for helping keep this show going, and definitely appreciate that. We'll learn more about that on the show notes as well, but those are definitely 4 of our biggest supporters that we have.
And Byron was talking about the audiobook, and if you get on our email list, we have a link to it on the show notes. Just give us your email address there. We'll send you a link to the show in each and every week. But you also get a Dropbox with some chapters from the audiobook, so you can check kind of almost like a pre-taste there, an appetizer. So you can check it out, try a part of a chapter there to see if it's something you'd like. So definitely get on our email list.
Gary, last week and the week before that were 2 great episodes. We had Christina Barlin on the show, and if you missed those, what's the matter with you? Go back and check them out. But
you got problems.
Truly great information from her. She actually won 2nd place at Worlds her first year at Black Belt just recently, so it was great to have her on so recent after that. and get all that information from her. And she really helped out and shared a lot of her thoughts about training and stuff like that. So this week we have a quote from her. So let's go ahead and play that now, Gary, and check out her quote.
A quote by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. That is my favorite quote.
And why does that mean so much to you?
Because for the longest time, and since I was from a very young age, I was always afraid to succeed. Always afraid to, as much as I always wanted to be the best at everything, there was always a little bit of shame that came with it, guilt that came with it, I guess you could say, because I would always hear like, "Oh, Christina, you're such a show off," or "Christina, you're so good at everything," like kind of like in a condescending tone, like you're so good at this, you're so good at that, and I just felt like I wasn't allowed to shine, or I had to feel guilty that I was doing well and other people weren't doing well, or I excelled at something and someone else wasn't excelling. So I always felt like I had to downplay my successes, or I had to hide who I was, and I couldn't be who I was. I always had to apologize, right? Then jiu-jitsu came along, and suddenly I was allowed to be great. I was allowed to be happy I was succeeding. So this quote means so much to me because it's pretty much it says that I'm allowed to accept myself. I'm allowed to be me. And that is going to be perfectly okay, and that's perfectly acceptable. I don't have to hide. I don't have to do anything other than just be me. And that influence will allow someone else to shine, because I've seen so many people who tell me the same thing, like, I feel so guilty about succeeding because I have these family members who make me feel bad about when I do things good for myself. When I start to diet, or when I start to work out, or how come you're training all the time? How come you're doing this? How come you're doing that? And why can't you just stay down here? Why don't you stay here where it's comfortable? Why can't you just stay in the comfort zone? Why do you have to succeed so that we feel bad about our mediocrity? It's essentially what I had to grow up hearing. And again, it's not that these people were bad. It's not that, I honestly, at a young age, I think that people don't realize what the words that they're saying and how their actions, how they say things. And when you constantly tell someone who is driven that they need to hide, that they can't be proud of of who they are, that you're essentially telling them that they can't be themselves, and that's because that their success makes you uncomfortable, and that's not right. And now how I live my life it's not so much I don't care what you think about me, I don't care what others, but I am so done with having to apologize for being great. And this is not being cocky. This isn't like I'm better than you. This is the complete epitome of loving myself and accepting myself and being able to look in the mirror and say that I love me, and I love what I do, and I love what I have been able to do, and I love what I'm going to do, and I can only continue to do what I do if I have no apologies for it. I don't have to apologize for being great. I don't have to apologize for being successful. I don't have to apologize for being good at something. I can just be good at something, and hopefully that'll inspire somebody to want to be good at something too. And that's all I've always wanted to do. That by me being good at something and me sharing what I am good at with everybody else, that can bring joy to someone's life. that can, and whether that be that you enjoy what I'm doing or you find something that you're going to enjoy, however way that plays out. Or if that means that you have the confidence or you're inspired to go out and do something differently that you never thought you could do before or that you thought you would never do. You know, again, leaving the comfort zone and again, not having to apologize for it. Jiu-jitsu is the one time that I am absolutely allowed to be unapologetically me. And who I am, how I am is exactly okay. And that quote is the embodiment and is that expression of that I can just, I don't have to be ashamed of being talented, and I don't have to be ashamed of my hard work, and no one should have to be. Everybody has the right to just love themselves exactly who they are.
Wow, what a great quote. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I want to thank Christina for that quote. I've never heard that one before. It really, some people feel like success is something to be embarrassed about, and that's something that I guess I wasn't really that aware of. But you know, I guess you kind of feel shy or a little bit like you don't want to make a big deal about things. You know, sometimes after something, and that's kind of that feeling. You know, don't be afraid to say, hey, I did this, I accomplished this. There's a difference between bragging and being proud of yourself or feel good about an accomplishment. And then don't let people make you feel bad about being proud of things you've accomplished, whether it's big or small. If you're working hard for something and you've reached that goal, you know, feeling that way is part of the process. And if you turn down the volume on that to where you're kind of numb with it, it's going to take out some of the motivation, I'd imagine. But really appreciate her sharing her thoughts about that. She talked about it pretty better than I could, so I guess we could probably leave it there. Unless, Gary, have anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, you know, like what you're saying, nobody really likes the guy who just brags and lets everybody know about it. But we all appreciate the humble people, you know, the Christina Barlins. You're very humble, but like you said, you put so much time and effort into this goal. Like in part of the quote, we are meant to shine as children do. You put so much time and effort into it. Don't be afraid of being happy. Don't, you know, celebrate it. Just don't go crazy over the top. It's and it just seems like everybody I know is really, really good. They're the quiet people. They don't go crazy. They don't brag, but you know, they do celebrate. You know, it's just not big celebrations. So never feel bad. You know, always celebrate your accomplishments. Yep.
So thanks for her. That's largely a category I really didn't think about. So she definitely shed some light on that one for me. So Gary, you mentioned earlier that we're kind of we're busy guys. We don't grapple every day, and we definitely don't grapple all day every day. But we get on the mat when we can, several times a week. How's that have to do with anything today, Gary? Like the article of the week, maybe?
Hey, we got the article of the week from Kane Provost. We've went over a couple of stuff before, but I happened to see this article here not too long ago, and to me, after reading it, in my opinion, and you know, everybody's got their own opinion, but this is the best jiu-jitsu article I think I've ever read. I'm not a black belt, but I can kind of know. I know what he's saying. You know, I've been around this game a long time, and I just think it's a great article. It's called "Confessions of a Hobbyist Black Belt." It's from June 26, 2015, and what Kane's talking about is, you know, he says we see so much, and we get so much advice from jiu-jitsu black belts, and most of the time when you see the article in Jiu-Jitsu Times or you know, in a magazine or online anywhere, you know, it's normally from Hickson, you know, Salo, Marcelo, Sanjay, Rafael Lovato, you know, the big names. And, you know, that's who the people are following. So everybody's following the big names. But what I like what this article is talking about is like we often miss the voice of the hobbyist. And not everybody can devote their full time to chasing medals. And that's a bad word, not chasing medals. You know, it's not their career. You know, a lot of guys are you know, you get the Lovatos, the Marcelos, they're just incredible. But not everybody can be like that. And, you know, he talks about that there's just so many regular black belts that, you know, have full-time jobs, family trains, and jiu-jitsu is not the bulk of their life. They maybe only need to train 1 or 2 days. And like he's saying, it's okay to be a hobbyist. You don't have to, there's no shame in it. It doesn't make you any less of a jiu-jitsu person. And he talks about how a good school has a ton of hobbyists in its ranks. You need people who are parents, professionals, educators, tradesmen, students, doctors, etc. And that'll give the school a diversity and a richness that it wouldn't have if everybody was a full-time athlete. And I just think, that's just an incredible article right here.
Yeah, there's a lot in this article, and I think this breaks some of the idea that people have of black belts can do anything they want anytime with another lower level person. But that's also there sometimes as well. Somebody fresh off the street doesn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. Yeah, this stuff is incredibly easy. But if I have the goal of only armbarring that person, it might be difficult. But if I just want to submit the person, that's not all that tough. And so I think he didn't say what motivated this article, but in here it says yesterday. So I'm guessing that this happened. This happened the day before he wrote it. So this probably is a big part of why he wrote this article. Yesterday, I rolled the 2 different white belts that I could not submit from my guard. I tried my triangle chokes, arm bars, omoplatas, could not pull them off. Their posture was too good. I couldn't break it. And that's not like impossible to envision. He's a black belt. And these guys who are relatively new are working on their fundamentals, are keeping their posture good, and he's unable to break it. And then he goes down to say that he likes to roll a long time, and I'm in the same boat as that. So if I go out and I roll, and same as him, roll hard, I get a few rounds, and then I'm kind of done. Or I could roll at a moderate pace and roll until people are going home. And those are 2 choices that I have, and that's kind of what he has as well. So maybe if he wanted to turn it up, he could have done that. But most likely, maybe his guard isn't all that submission oriented. Maybe his triangle chokes, arm bars, and omoplatas aren't all that solid. But he probably could have swept those guys without much trouble and then work from the top. That's kind of it's just easy to, as a person who's a lower belt, to say, oh, black belts are always, they can do whatever they want, or maybe just think that, and it's not always true. If you're sticking to your fundamentals, you could really give somebody a hard time, especially if they're not willing to give, 100% push all the time. They're just kind of rolling and giving you 50% stuff. Sometimes needs a little bit more energy than that. And if you're not willing to just try to slam that triangle on or really hip into that armbar, it may not be real easy to catch everybody in that.
I like what you're saying there about the fundamentals. And he does talk about struggling with training life balances. And he says he sees many younger guys in the gym 5-6 days a week, sometimes 2 times a day. He's lucky if he can make it 3 times a week, but it's normally 2 times a week. But going back to the fundamentals, like he talks about how he trains differently. What he does is he tries to make his game smaller, which is great advice. I never really thought about that. It seems like everybody is always trying to make their game bigger, learning more and more moves. And he basically says he's trying to make a game smaller so that there's less to maintain. He doesn't have all that time to train. He's got 2 days a week, probably a maximum of 4 hours to train. So, he says I probably have 3 submissions, 3 guard passes, and I love this part. Most things I can do effectively on only one side. And that's me. I've been training, 12, going on 13 years. And a lot of my stuff, I'm so much better on one side. But he says making my game smaller makes it easier to maintain and grow on even 2 days per week. But I thought that was some really good advice right there for the hobbyist.
Yeah, the smaller game is an interesting concept, and people who can't train 6 days a week, even 4 times a week, need to consider that. That's my gi jiu-jitsu is basically the same as my no-gi jiu-jitsu because I can't always choose which day or even which time of day I'm going to go train. I might train in the morning, evening, it might be Monday, it might not be till Thursday. So I don't get to pick if I'm going to do gi or no-gi this week or which one. So if I'm going to work on a guard pass, I need to have that pass work in both. I don't need it to have it to be, dependent on the lapel, or I don't need the submission to have, super good grips on the on the sleeves or something like that. I need to be able to work on the same thing for weeks, months at a time, and be able to work on it in every class I go to. And I think that's similar to what he's saying here, is narrowing down your game. And if he's doing that, and you're relatively new at this, and you're trying to pick up a new move every day at work, watching it on the computer or on your phone, really think about tightening your game, narrowing it down to just a few things. I mean, that's the original BJJ brick concept, is have a few bricks in your arsenal to throw like weapons, not a whole bunch of little pebbles or sand that's like a pile that's loose and not very strong. I think that's a good idea. And most people, even at the elite levels, have a handful of bricks that they use. They don't have a million. They could, you get a guy like elite level person, yeah, they can submit me with whatever they want. But against elite level competition, against another elite level person, they're going to stick to their game plan, and they're going to do a handful of techniques. And yeah, really, this article to me feels like he's just telling everybody like the negative parts of his game and like what gives him a hard time, and I'm a real person, and sometimes jiu-jitsu was a difficult thing for me. And I think we all have days like that. And I'm sure he has days that are not like that. Stuff was working great for him. And he actually has a postscript, Gary. What did you think about that?
Yeah, the postscript was what I thought was great. I couldn't believe some of the backlash he was getting. But before we get to that, I did want to bring up something real quick. Is he was talking about there's a place for the hobbyist black belt, and he talks about how, he's there at the gym to get people's game better and efficiently as possible regardless of size, strength, and all that. So, he's very important in the gym. And one thing I bet that kind of happens too is he's so good at teaching the fundamentals. Like he's kind of, made his game smaller, that he's having trouble submitting these guys. And like he said, their posture was so good, that's due to him. I'm not sure if this is his own school or if he's just a black belt at the school, but I guarantee you he has taught a lot of these people and gave them such good techniques that's making it hard for them. So, I just see that if you have good black belts to train with, you're gonna be even tougher, and I think that's probably one of the reasons he put it in there. But going back to that postscript, this really kind of blew my mind. He was talking about it seems like he was getting a lot of backlash on this article, which, I just thought it was such an open and honest article. I just, I'm not kidding when I said I thought this was probably one of the best articles I've read. It's just so truthful and, thought-provoking. And, not everybody, I just like it. He's so honest. I mean, he admits he struggles with people. Everybody does, but not everybody has enough guts to admit it. But he's just telling it like it is, and I feel this is, like I said, I'm dumbfounded that somebody would find some reason to tear this thing apart.
He does talk a lot about his struggles and things like that at all levels we feel in jiu-jitsu. Blue, purple, white, brown, black, whatever. We all have the days that feel like, oh, I really didn't have it today. And we all have the days that we feel great and everything seemed easy. But at the end of it, he says he's perfectly comfortable tying that black belt around his waist. His coach, he's seen his coach tie black belts on quite a few people. They all definitely deserved it. He feels that his coach wouldn't have gave him a belt unless he deserved it. And that's something to remember about yourself. As you're wearing that new blue belt or purple belt, and you have one of those rough days, and you get tapped by a person who's that notch below you, it's okay. It's really not that big a deal. It's training. It's have that faith in your coach that they gave you that belt and you deserved it, and then just move on. I think that's a big reason why a lot of the blue belts end up quitting, is because there'll be a handful of white belts that are pretty close in skill, and let's say there's 5 of them. 2 of them get their blue belts. The other 3 don't. They'll get them, next time, a little bit further down the road. But those 3 now are super motivated to try to tap out a blue belt now, and so now they're going to roll even harder than they were before with those blue belts, and that's going to add up as the rounds go by on the mats and things like that. And of course, occasionally they'll get caught. There's not that big of a gap. And really, big secret here, nothing happens when your belt changes. You're basically the same grappler you were the day before. And those white belts will catch those blue belts, and it's demotivating. trust your instructor, trust that you deserve the belt, and just say, I got caught. Move on. Not a big deal.
Yep, that's perfect. I like when he says, I'll never back down from a friendly roll with anyone for a fear of not looking like a black belt, or it could be a brown or a blue, whatever belt you are. But then he goes on to say, that fear thwarts growth and has no place on the mat. And that is so true. He's basically just saying a black belt's not indestructible. He's going to roll with anybody, and it's just going to make him better.
Yeah, and he does in this article say that he's got some weak parts in his game. I have some weak parts in my game. My Kimura is terrible. I don't know why in particular, but I've never really had the motivation to work on it. Gary's Kimura is amazing. The guys that have been training with Gary for a year have a better Kimura than me. So if I set out to get a Kimura on people, I'm not going to get it. And the guy with a year experience, or maybe two, is going to be getting twice as many Kimuras as I could pull off. I don't know. It's just sometimes parts of your game are not up that level. But am I going to try my Kimura on somebody who I'm really having a good roll with? No. I'm just going to leave it aside and do something different. Like, that's not where I'm going to funnel my match to. It's not smart for me.
Well, on Tuesdays, Byron, the guys that I trained with, we have a what we call Tuesday, we call it Ways to Beat Byron class. So what we do is we pick apart your game and we game plan your weaknesses and try to get stronger in that area and how to exploit them. So that's, I think, what you're running into.
Gary, I do appreciate that, and that's why I got to,
we got your back.
I do a lot of times. I do try to shrink my game down and try to boil on. I've been working on leg drags basically ever since talking to Tim Sled on the podcast. He really sold me on the idea. It's great to pass basically all types of guards. You can get yourself in a leg drag position, and it works fine with no gi or no gi. And I'm like, that's perfect for me. I've been working on that for a long time. And
you're killing me with it. So, Tim, if you're listening, Byron is killing me with your leg drags. So he just talks about it constantly, and he's always working it. And every time I roll with him, I know I'm getting leg dragged. But it's not fun.
But there's lots of passes that I'm not good at, that I'm not any good at. That if you ask me how to do this certain pass, yeah. But if somebody said, "How do you do this certain pass?" I would say, "Ask that guy," and I'd be pointing to a blue belt or a purple belt because that guy knows how to do the pass. And that's I'm not that level of a grappler to where I have that sort of knowledge of everything on the mat, or even close to it. So, but I do have my game, and it works pretty good for me. Gary, we'll put a link to this article. It's a long one. We did not cover all of it. There's a lot of stuff in there, and read the comments as well.
Yep, great article.
Before we get into the interview, we got a couple more things to talk about. A thing that's been going around, and I'm trying to help promote, is putting a blue stripe on your belt. The color blue is a symbol or a color to support police.
Yeah, it's a color.
It's a color, not a symbol. A stripe blue is, I guess, is a symbol or a shape. Man, Gary, I don't know what things are anymore. But I put a blue stripe on my belt. A lot of people have done this. Consider it. Hopefully, you're at a place where that's acceptable at your school. As long as you explain it, you probably would be okay. You're showing support for law enforcement officers and encouraging them to continue to do the right thing and continue to work hard. The career of a law enforcement officer is a very difficult one for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the actual job is difficult, but in reality, they show up and people are not happy that they're there. They are constantly dealing with people who are hard to deal with, who are trying to catch them in something, a little slip up. I'm glad I don't have somebody like that at my job, Gary.
Yeah.
But
yep.
So they get a lot of negative energy thrown at them throughout the day, and they don't get a lot of reinforcement. Hey, I support you. So the blue stripe on the belt is just like a little way of saying I support the vast majority of good police officers trying to do their job, and often, very often, underthanked and underappreciated by this community that we live in today. So that's I got the blue stripe on my belt, and actually a couple days ago, I had a chance to go to a Frank Mir seminar, and after the seminar was over, I showed him my belt, I showed him the blue stripe, and I said, "Do you want a stripe on your belt?" He says, "Yeah." So I've only put maybe, I know I put a stripe on our friend Taylor's belt and a couple of white belts. So I probably have put less than 5 stripes on belts in my entire life. But one of them now is on Frank Mear's belt, and it's a blue stripe.
That's awesome.
I told him, I go, this is weird putting a stripe on your belt. But we got a picture of that. It's on our Facebook page. I was honored that he's willing to show support for the law enforcement, and so consider doing that. Find some blue tape. Mine's blue electrical tape. I don't think they have a lot of blue athletic tape or anything like that. But and then if your teacher would have a problem with it, ask first, and then I don't know, go for it if it's something that you believe in.
Yes.
All right, one more thing, Gary.
Byron, what would that be?
We have a friend of ours who needs a little bit of help, and kind of here in Wichita, we're doing a kids tournament to help raise some funds, and so if you're anywhere near the Kansas area and have kids that grapple, definitely look into that. The kids tournament is going to be August 13 in the morning, from 9 a.m. to about 3 p.m. or so here in Wichita, Kansas. So that money is going to raise money for a great cause. Gary, Gary, what's the cause for?
It's for a little warrior, just a great guy. We call him Super B. He's had some, how would you say it? I guess some gastrointestinal issues here in the last couple of years. Spent a lot of time in the hospital. He's probably the most courageous and strongest guy I have actually never met him. I've been following him on Facebook for a long time. And, to be honest, he really is my hero. He's just a tough kid with a great personality, and it seems like he always has a smile on his face. And so we just want to try to, as much as he's helped me, just, reading about him and like I said, seeing that smile on his face and just realizing how tough he is and just praying for him all the time. We would like to try to help the family with all the medical bills they have been experiencing, try to make it a little bit easier on the Weaver family.
Yep, absolutely. Super B was born 1 pound and 6 ounces, Gary, almost 7 ounces. He was given days to live. He's now 13 years old, and he's got to have a surgery here in a little bit, and it's going to be expensive and not covered. And so they actually have a GoFundMe page, and we will put a link to that in the show notes to where you can go and donate. Think about your life. Think about how we all have things to be grateful for. Hopefully, your family is healthy, but some people, I can't imagine the stress of having a child that's not healthy and needs surgery. So just think about your gratefulness of things, and if you feel compelled to help out, check out the GoFundMe page. People have donated. I'm looking at the donations there, and they had quite a few months ago, and it's definitely slowed down, and they're almost halfway to their goal. Let's help get them there, guys. Our friend Craig is a very fun grappler to grapple with, and their family's going through some tough times, and sometimes help like this is all you could do for somebody. So if you can help, in a position to financially do so, much appreciated. And just check out the link and read about what's going on with Super B.
Yep, and I guarantee you, he will become your hero. That's one tough kid. I don't think anybody has that guy's strength and courage.
That's true, Gary. Gary, let's roll.
Let's get on with Mr. Alan Shebaro.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
Every time he gets a submission, Subway gives away a free sub. He can get you a toe by 3 this afternoon with nail polish. He has lost more than 1 tooth teaching the kids class. His bucket list can be used as an actual bucket. It often holds ice, gauze, and Vaseline.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay listening, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Alan Shebaro to the BJJ Brick podcast. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We've got a lot to talk about today. First off, if somebody hasn't heard of you yet, can you give us like a little introduction about who you are and what you're doing?
I currently am the head instructor at 201 Training Facility in McKinney, Texas. Third degree black belt. I got my black belt from Carlos Machado in 2004, and I'm currently ranked under Octavio Cotto in Dallas out of Octagon. I spent about 15 years in the military, 7 years of that, special operations, and just recently got back into competing the last 5 years. Been trying to get more and more into it. Trying to do the best I can with what I got. Start from scratch and then work myself up from there.
That sounds like a good plan. You're a busy guy, though. I think I want to start a little bit earlier. You're a third-degree black belt. When did you start jiu-jitsu?
I believe it was in 1997. I was stationed at Fort Hood, and there was actually only one black belt in the States, in the state of Texas, which was Carlos Machado up in Dallas. And I was stationed in Fort Hood, which is in Killeen, Texas. So he had a blue belt that was teaching literally in the back, behind the bleachers of a basketball court with those blue fold-out mats. And he was a blue belt. And that's actually where I got my start.
It's amazing how much things have changed over the years of how to start jiu-jitsu, you know?
I remind my students pretty much every day when I have a lineup of about 5 or 6 black belts, and I have student base usually between 25 to 26 on average, and we have like 6 black belts lined up, male and female. I mean, just look at them and shake my head and tell them how spoiled they are, and they don't have any idea, what we all, like especially the older black belts, went through to seek out knowledge. Everything from VHS tapes of Mario Sperry, then it evolved into DVDs, and finally more black belts came out, and it's definitely been a huge, massive evolution and a very quick pace.
Alan, I remember getting
incredible
VHS tapes and trying to train with those, but there are people listening to us who don't even really know what that is. I mean, that is just a sign of the times are changing, and there's so much more information out there. Anything that was available was like treasured information, it seems like, and now it's the exact opposite. There's so much information out there. You have to filter through everything to find the good stuff.
Well, the crazy part is back then is there was no way to verify.
Yeah.
So you would walk into a school and it was, John's Chunky Monkey Doe, and he was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. And there's a certificate. And then at the time, it's actually a true story. I walked in there and I was like, oh, you're really close to where I live, which was 40 minutes compared to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And the guy didn't know what even the positions were called. And at the time, you could actually mail order your, if you ordered the blue belt set of VHS tapes, purple, brown, and black, if you ordered them all together, you would have a bundle set. With that came an official certificate of that you are a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. True story.
Wow.
If you actually look on Bushido.net, I'm sure you'll find some threads on that still.
Wow. Times have changed, and now you see that sort of thing erupt in a video online where people are saying, you're not a black belt, and kind of making a big scene about things. I want to get to know you a little bit better. Can you describe maybe your style of jiu-jitsu and the game you like to play?
My game has definitely evolved from one end of the spectrum to the other. When I first started doing jiu-jitsu, my first tournament I weighed in at 147.5. I was 6'1". I was the smallest guy in class. Everyone else came from like a wrestling, football background, so everyone was probably about 200 plus. I didn't have a choice. They would have us start on our knees, and the instructor would say, go, and literally got tackled and just put on my back. Didn't have much force or strength at the time. And so I started using my legs. My guard position, closed guard at the time was the hotness. There was, open guard was still kind of like one of those mysteries, and it was still voodoo. And so I started working in, a solid closed guard game. And then once I came off active duty my first time in 99, is actually when I started putting weight on. Gained about 10 pounds a year or so. Able to get on a routine, started putting on weight and going to the gym regularly, eating clean instead of the chow hall, and maintained. It was a consistent walk around weight that I started gaining weight. Before I knew it, and I was 185, 190 pounds, and I actually got yelled at by Travis Luter one day. I'll never forget that day in class, where he yells at me from across the class saying, what are you doing on your back? Get on top. If you know Travis, he cusses a lot. Get on top and play like a big guy does. Stop playing like you're still 140 pounds. So it kind of hit me that, I'm not that small anymore. I should be playing a bigger game. And so it evolved into start playing a topside game. But for the first 5-6 years of my career, I literally was just a guard player. Now, one thing that has definitely made me made a name for myself was pulling guard. And I don't normally just let people just kind of mouth off whatever they want to think. But the reason behind that was actually when I was on an operation in Iraq, we had to bring somebody in. We couldn't take care of him on target. We had to bring him back in alive for interrogation. Went in. I got the first room with one. There was myself and my one of the guys on my team came in the room with me. The guy was about 150 pounds, soaking wet. At the time, I was in my bigger days. When you're on deployment, you're on mission, or you are lifting weights, or eating, or sleeping. Those are the 4 things. The 5th thing is something you do alone in private. That happens a lot too. But yeah, so what had happened is at the time I was already a black belt. This was in 2007, I believe. And all I can remember was I was a breacher at the time, so I had a huli tool, hammer, plate carrier, M4 shotgun, pistol, magazines, flashbangs, frag grenades, thermobaric grenades, charges. I was loaded up to the gills. And my weight was probably about, with all my gear on, about 335, 340 pounds.
Wow.
And keep in mind, that was about 245, 245, and I knew how to move. I was already a black belt at the time. And shots went off in the floor above us. I had my knee across his neck, pinning him down. And again, I know how to move. It's kind of like a knee on belly type position. And when the shots went off, I literally just turned over to make sure that my teammate was there. And he had bucked to try to get up. And it felt like an eternity when I started going backwards, because my back, I had all my breaching gear, spare magazines, emergency field aid kit, and so it was dragging me back. And it felt like it took every ounce of energy, every ounce of strength that I had to bring myself back up, because all I could think of is if I fell back, he would even look. He would just have to rake across my plate carrier, and the flashbangs that we had them on rubber bands, so we can just rip them off and throw them in the room. And if he would have just pulled a pin, my head would have come off with it, and there was nothing I could do about it. The whole entire ride back, I remember just thinking about that over and over again. Not only did that change my perspective in self-defense, but it also changes my perspective on how I'm going to teach, the way I'm going to teach, the complete elimination of pulling guard. And I really, Chris Haueter put it perfectly, was think street, train sport. And that's basically how I've kind of, my entire game has evolved. I'm just as comfortable on my back as I am on top. I don't stick to one style. Funny thing is that somebody actually tried to insult me a couple years ago by saying my style is Frankenstein jiu-jitsu. It's not of pure lineage. And I thought that was probably the biggest compliment that I've been given in years. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm creating monsters. I train with phenomenal instructors from all over the U.S. and overseas. I've got to train with, my known instructor, Octavio Couto, one of the most unknown people, Kenny McClure, who has been probably the biggest influence in my game since I was a brown belt. He doesn't compete. He's very mild-mannered, but if you're in the Dallas area, he is definitely well known. Renato Tavares, Fetson Paijao, Kurt Osiander, Chris Haueter, Gina Franzen. I mean, all these phenomenal black belts that have been able to, like, oh, that is awesome. I'm going to take this, I'm going to plug it into this game and modify it a little bit. Let's add this. Let's be a little bit mean about it, more aggressive. Okay, nailed it. And then implement it into that game. I train with Sina Haddad, who one of the best judo players and jiu-jitsu players that I've ever come across. Another hidden gem in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's actually been brought in by Atos to work on their takedown. Andre Galvao actually got his takedowns from him. Huge influence on his stand-up game. So mine is literally a complete mix of the best that I can get my hands on, as long as the mechanics and the concepts make sense. I adapt it, I bring it in, and I try to manipulate it to work into like a series and put it together and make it work efficiently. So we took the scenic route, but we still got there. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I've got another question that's kind of spurred from that. I like the concept of you've made it your own thing. It's not just learning techniques and then doing them. It's an art form. Everyone's a little bit different in what they're going to do. The body types and body types, like you mentioned, they change over time, and your game will change, and you learn from this person and that person. Can you maybe pinpoint a time or maybe a belt level where you started to make jiu-jitsu more personal for yourself versus you just learn this sweep, okay, that's how to do that, and you learn this arm bar, okay, and when it started to become something that this is what you do, and this is part of your game now. Can you think of a time like that started to happen for you when it became a personalized thing?
I think actually Kenny McClure was the one that really kind of opened up my eyes on that aspect. He would never take it easy on me. He's literally one of my closest friends, and he is actually the one who put me out for 8 months as a white belt. He had me in a heel hook. I was at the level where I had no idea what a heel hook was, and he hooked it. He paused. He didn't crank on it, and he looked at me like, "Are you going to tap?" And I looked. I was like, "Well, he doesn't have an ankle lock," and so I rotated the wrong way, and he was like, "Okay, I'm just going to put some pressure." But the thing is that I went the wrong way. He went the right way, and it cracked my ankle, my knee, my hip, and my lower back.
Wow.
And he's actually the same person that really kind of made me think about the general mechanics and understanding why. And I tell my students all the time, have any of y'all been to the moon? No. A monkey has been to the moon. Does that mean that he knows why? No. He knows how to press a green button to get a treat. He presses a red button, he gets zapped. So there's so many people out there, there's so many instructors out there that can teach how to do something. and do it well. But they're only going to get so far. My belief, my opinion, and this is just from me, if you teach your students why they're doing it, why the weight goes here, why the heel goes there, why do you not put your foot down here, why do you grab in this place and not here, why do you not grab the gi, why do you grab the elbow instead, you understand why, and you can actually self-correct much sooner than you would having to wait till you're a black belt and go and then start having an epiphany. I'm like, oh, now I'm relearning. I'm understanding now. You should be doing that from the very beginning. When armbar from the guard, while you're bringing your leg up and clamping it as hard as you can into the armpit and turning your body to where your ear touches their knee. I actually had a purple belt who couldn't answer that. I'm not going to say what school they're from, but a very reputable person. But they didn't understand why. I was like, well, you're trying to keep their posture broken down, and this is why you're doing it. And okay, so why are you putting your knee into the shoulder? And again, they were like, and they're trying to think of it, and I think I was asking me a trick question. I was like, no, just seriously try to figure it out. And then all of a sudden, like, what's your percentage on this? And I'm like, very low. I have probably like 30%. Do you know why? No. He knows how to do it. He just doesn't know why he's doing it. So when I kind of re-explain to him why he's doing these things, all of a sudden that self-correction, I saw him probably about 3-4 months later. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, how'd that work out for you? Well, my percentage rate is about 90% now. So that works out great. Now you know why you're doing it, and you can actually fix it. He's moving his shoulder up. Why? Because I'm not clamping it down. Okay. Now we're on the right track. And if you start white belts out like that, they're going to be so far ahead of the game than guys my generation. I mean, and that's the crazy part is the better that jiu-jitsu gets, the more it evolves. The more that people evolve in training and in teaching and methodology, concepts, all these different things that are traditionally unorthodox become common. Open guard, half guard. Half guard was the middle point between guard and side mount. It was the one thing your last stand, so he couldn't get side mount, and you'd bring him back to guard. And when I came back off from active duty, when I was in special operations, well, my commander had to sit down when I first got there. He said, "You're an operator, not a fighter. Get used to that. You're not going to be fighting. You're not going to be training. You're not going to be competing. You're going to be coaching the guys on the team, and you're going to be an operator, and that's it." So I had to take a 7-year gap off. When I came back, I was like, why are you jumping into this position? This makes no sense. And that was the first time I saw deep half. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? Whoa. And I was on my back. I was like, how did that happen? And it was a complete mystery. It was amazing how much it evolved. I'm like, people actually using that as they're jumping into that position when we're using it as like a shield, like a last stand, don't pass my guard. Now they developed it into an entire game. And it was amazing how much and how far it's gone. Even the last 5 years, it's incredible how much evolution in the sport has been affected over the short time frame.
Looking at your example of know why you're doing something, why are you using your half guard? To stop the guy from passing my guard completely, so I can try to recover a real guard back. It was the old answer. And now why are you using it? Well, maybe to get to a good position, maybe to sweep, maybe to get to deep half or something like that. Just that why. And then the comparison of trying to learn from a videotape, a VHS tape, where you really don't get to know why you're doing something. It's here's how to do this move, grab here, finish move here. Versus having a quality instructor on the mat with you, and you could say, why do I have to grab here? Or what's the reason for this grab here? What am I accomplishing with that? And that question can be answered very easily by somebody. And then learning at that deeper level, like you were saying, those white belts are so fortunate to get that level of instruction, and they're going to develop so much quicker.
Actually, allow me to interject on that one.
Yeah.
I know black belts that do know how to teach how and get offended if you ask why.
Okay, that makes sense.
So there are some people that are still coming up with that, that get to that level, that are accomplished, that do well in competition because they know how to do it very well. Now, when you try to teach somebody else and they're asking you why, it becomes almost offensive. You're talking back to them. I've actually seen that happen several times where one of the instructors got frustrated and are you questioning me? Are you you doubting my technique? I mean, I'm a freaking champion. No one's doubting that, but why am I putting my foot here? Why can't I just put it here? Isn't that more sensible? Because that's not how you do it. And they temper tantrum. They walked away. So I've actually seen that all the way through. And it's, to me, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for saying this. The whole lineage thing that people are so, stick to loyalty, stick to lineage, stick to this, stick to that. That to me is comparable to incest. You're never going to spread out. You're never going to actually move out into different categories and different types and styles and everything else if you stay within that one lineage and you don't go out to open mat, you don't go out to compete, you don't cross train in sambo and judo and wrestling, and you just stay where you're at. You show your loyalty, you wear your own patch, you don't go anywhere without your instructor allowing you to, you do only the in-house tournaments, and it's a lot more around here than you think, in the U.S. in general, and from what I understand, other places as well. I've never been to Brazil, so I'm not sure, but I know that's a big thing here is the whole, the undying loyalty to that. And you don't question anything. You stay there. We're the best, and you guys suck, and everybody else sucks. Well, how do you know? Have you been there? Have you tried it? I don't allow my students to go to open mat and other places. I highly encourage it. Go out there, try your technique. If it doesn't work, bring you back the problems. Let's work on it. And that's the only way to evolve. Because, hell, if I never saw worm guard and someone does it to me, that's the first time he's seeing it. I need to work on it. That's going to be out there again. I'm going to see it sometime again. So I need to be prepared for it. Even if I'm not playing that game, I need to be ready that it's coming, or there's a possibility that it's coming. Same thing with, deep half. Getting caught in half guard. Those guys, I call it the fight field. The guys that just jump half guard and lock their guard, and they just want to hold on. They don't want to do anything else, and they try to run time. And then they look at the clock, and then they wait. They look at the clock, and they wait, get their advantage, and then lock on, and they wait for time to run out, and then they raise their like they were as 15 rounds of Rocky, and it's the most ridiculous thing. I'm still of the belief. I have a hard time being coached. Most people don't like coaching me because I'm a home run hitter. I don't really watch the clock. I don't watch the points. I want to submit you. My game is to go out there, take you down, and submit you. And there's been 3 times where I was actually up on points and literally in the single digits. And I was like, hey, there's an ankle lock. And I went for an ankle lock. He sat up and he didn't get the full points for a reversal, but got the advantage, and I lost. And that was at Worlds, actually, to get into the finals. So I lost in the semifinals because I wanted to go for an ankle lock. And the look on my coach's face at the time was in complete disbelief, pseudo disgust. Yeah. And he's like, you won that match. Why did you go for the ankle? I was like, because it was there. That's the whole point of it. I want to break his ankle. I want to submit him. No, you were winning. You could have won the match. You could have gone to fight solo. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't. And I didn't get the win. And I didn't get the ankle lock. And I didn't get the submission. So to me, if I didn't do that, I would have lost. But that's just the way I am. I'm kind of weird.
I can see how that would be a hard style to coach somebody who's just going to go for it. But that's an admirable style. Somebody who is staying, I would say, more true to the original idea of the art. You mentioned some people get almost offended, or they do get offended if you say, "Why do we do this?" Don't question what I'm showing you. I think that sometimes we get excited to see some of the best competitors out there, but sometimes the best competitors are not the best coaches or the best instructors. The two could be, miles apart from the best coach may not be that great of a competitor, but he might be really good at explaining things and showing details compared to a competitor who is maybe more athletically talent gifted, and things came a little bit easier for them. They wouldn't be able to show, relate to some of the students as well, maybe, or something like that. But yeah, I've definitely been in a room where people were a little bit offended by a question. I think maybe the way you ask it is also a big deal, but a lot of interesting things you brought up there.
I agree with you 100%, but I'm going to add one more to it. So either they get offended because you're questioning their technique, because they have been accomplished, because you have guys that are great coaches, you have guys that are great competitors. Very rarely do you have guys that are actually both. Those are very rare. And even more rare is just because you're great on the mat doesn't make you a great person off the mat. And that's something that a lot of people, they realize they tend to idolize these figures, like especially in the earlier days, like, wow, I just saw a purple belt. I cannot believe I just saw a purple belt. That's like the first one I've ever seen. And I remember the first time I saw another blue belt, and it was actually Robert DeFranco, and he was wearing the kick-skin gi. I don't know if you remember those. And it was the first Brazilian jiu-jitsu gi. So basically it was like actually form-fitting. It didn't have like the floppy robe-looking fit as a KI judo gi that my instructor was charging us $150 for. But if you actually went online nowadays, you can get it for like $30. We had, the big floppy ones that nothing, the skirt went down to your knees. It just looked ridiculous. But that one was actually form-fitting. It was, the next guy come up, was another blue belt, and he was wearing a Krugens. And I was like, that is so badass. It's got skulls. It's got patches. And that was like, when all the patches, they looked like NASCAR racers. They had patches everywhere. And that was like the cool thing back then. But yeah, it was, and you tend to idolize guys that are at that level because they have a skill set. But it's just like anything else. You could have a phenomenal skill set in something and still be an asshole, excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still be a bad person and on the outside. But people tend to forget that because, they tend to idolize them, and they take advantage of that a lot of times, if they get in a situation with money. And unfortunately, you see that around here in Dallas as well. I try to avoid politics as much as I can, so I try to avoid naming names.
Yeah,
but it's a lot around here as well. I mean, Dallas is the mecca in Texas for jiu-jitsu, so there's a huge amount of jiu-jitsu schools here, and most of them are full. I mean, they're doing very well for the most part. Some are doing well right now. They're going to go down pretty soon once they realize who their instructor is and how full of shit they are. Sorry, there again.
It's okay, man. Just don't worry about it.
You have guys here. The guys that absolutely I have no respect for are the ones that never roll in a group class, not even with their own peers. They don't roll with their own students. They don't compete. But they're the loudest, most obnoxious people at tournaments. And those are the guys that pretty much to me are the lowest of the, they scrape the bottom of the barrel. They shouldn't be in the positions that they're, because they're dicks off the mat. Nobody knows what they are on the mat because they never roll, not in group classes, not for training. So to me is, how can you actually know if something's going to work based off of theory? So you're just like, yeah, I'll teach you guys this. Well, did you try it on someone who was trying to fight back on you, or did you watch it from a DVD? Or back, my first instructor literally went from the VHS tape and then actually used the same anecdote for the Brazilian that had when I was in Brazil, back in the barrio, we had a lot to fight, and this one guy came and hit me by the side of the head, and I went down, and I did this takedown. I show you this takedown right now, so you can go from there to an ankle lock. And the weirdest thing is that he would actually say the same story.
Wow.
I was down in Austin, and some guy at the bar just cold cocked me. I went down, and I saw his leg right there. I got to show you guys this takedown to an ankle lock that I made up. And again, at the time, internet, you couldn't really prove anything because this was back in '97, and it was taking 10 minutes to get online, and then another 5-6 minutes to get the page to show up. So there was a very hard way of verifying except word of mouth and actual hard copies. So
yeah,
but yeah, that was my first experience. I learned a great deal from all these people, the bad and the good. And I learned from the bad what I don't ever want to be, and I learned from the good. I want to continue that.
I think that we're kind of talking about this. This conversation is kind of going. The same people that teach that way, that don't actually do it or have any depth of knowledge of it, also would be offended if you start asking questions because they don't have any answers for them. Versus if somebody asks me a question and I don't know. I mean, maybe this guy knows because I don't have any idea what you're talking about, and it's confusing for me too. But if you pretend like you know everything, and hey, you guys aren't allowed to go to open mat somewhere else. You guys have to stay here where it's the best possible school for you. In that attitude, like you said, like the closed doors and the almost like an inbreeding culture.
I agree.
I want to talk about some more positive things here, Alan, because you're doing a lot of good things for people.
Unless you're a troglodyte, right, and then you come out and you are a black belt jiu-jitsu, so don't go around saying, hey, I don't have a coach, I taught myself jiu-jitsu. That is the biggest crock of shit that I've ever heard in my life. There's people actually around here that say that you learn from somebody. That's it. That's the bottom line. You didn't come up with it in your own head. It's like saying that you came up with the alphabet. No, you didn't. You learned it from somebody, and that's the bottom line.
Or you didn't really learn it at all.
Sorry. How about that?
Or they didn't really learn it at all, and they're just acting like they learned it. They learned something.
There you go.
But Alan, I want to bring this to a little more positive light because you're doing a lot of good work for the community. You're deeply involved with the We Defy Foundation, and you're also involved with Mission 22. Can you tell us a little bit about these and what's going on with those?
Actually, so Mission 22 was started by Magnus Johnson, who was part of the 3rd Special Forces Group, and Tom Spooner, who was in Delta Special Operation Forces Detachment Delta, also known as CAG. We were actually doing unilateral missions together in 2009, which was a very small world because I didn't even know that he was part of it. About 2 years ago, I was at the Chicago Open in 2014, and two of the people that were there were still, it was a husband and wife. Her husband was in my old unit, and so they wanted to talk to me about Mission 22. And this is something that when they started talking to me about it, really struck a chord. I refused to believe that I had PTSD. I had zero remorse, zero regret for the things that I've done. So I'm like, I'm not one of them. I don't know what's going on with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I wasn't sleeping more than 2 hours a night. This was going on for months. I was taking double the amount of prescription I was supposed to. I was watching it down with starting out from 1, 2, 3 beers to a 12-pack just to get some sleep. And then next day I was up at 5:30 to the 6 o'clock class, and I had to be motivated and jolly and, coach people through. And so I doubled up on my Adderall and washed it down with a 5-hour energy and had a Red Bull in my hand the entire day. And so so it hit home with me because I was actually I almost became a statistic myself. And just the notion to know that someone I knew started this nonprofit and I was not alone, it literally changed my life. So I became deeply involved with Mission 22 to spread awareness that there's an average of 22 veterans that commit suicide daily. That number is not entirely accurate. A lot of people argue that it's lower. A lot of people argue that's higher. Regardless, it doesn't fucking matter. If there's one person that's doing it, we need to do something about it. I'm sorry about that again. But to me, it's something that it's a freaking epidemic. We don't hear about it on the news. And sadly to say enough, it's bad for recruiting, so you don't want to hear about that. You go and serve, you do war, come back, should be honky-dory and fine. And the VA system should be working great. It took me 3 years to get in the system. And yeah, that's working really good. And, which is an improvement from 7 years from what I heard. So yes, they're on their way. So I've been, what I started doing was talking to her. I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So a very good friend of mine, one of my best friends, Pete Wilhelm, he runs Triton Fight Center in Oklahoma. He's also a fellow veteran. And he had some of the same issues himself. We both were going through a form of PTSD called survivor's guilt. And, he lost a lot of men, and when he was downrange, he was a Marine, was recon, was a DI. And he struggled with alcoholism, struggled with drugs, cleaned himself up. And so we have that mutual bond. Although through tragedy, it's still a very strong bond that connected us. And so him and I agreed that we were going to help Julia to kind of manage the jiu-jitsu world of Mission 22. And we even warned her, if we do this, you're going to have to be ready because you're going to get flooded. And she just kind of, yeah, I got this. I'm in the rock climbing community and, so I know how it goes. I know. I was like, you don't understand. The jiu-jitsu community is very different. Once we get this going, you are going to get flooded. Just be prepared. I'm just warning you. And Pete tried to do the same thing. He tried to warn her. Yeah, I got this. So we launched. We started making gi patches, or Mission 22 started making gi patches. And before you know it, they are getting slammed. They can't keep patches, in stock. They were like 3 months behind. There are people calling them left and right. We had people, from coast to coast wanting to get involved. People on the podiums raising up the Mission 22 shirt, or the banner, or the patch that they had, to show their support, and not even veterans. That was the most amazing part. It's just people that are, that were united in the same cause. And the amount of support that they received through the jiu-jitsu community has been absolutely incredible. Now, Mission 22 is, and Pete Wilhelm and I are just ambassadors on the jiu-jitsu side. We just kind of manage that side of Mission 22. We're not board members, or it's not our foundation. We're just trying to help out best we can. We Defy Foundation was actually started by myself and Joey Bozik. So Joey actually came to me about a year and a half ago to get his daughter in jiu-jitsu. And so he comes in the office and we start talking and ask him about his injuries because he had a military backpack on. And so we started talking. He was at Fort Bragg, small community, and we knew some of the same people. And I asked him if, he's ever, was he a martial artist before? Had he ever thought about, doing jiu-jitsu now? And he put his head down, kind of like, I've had a bad experience before. I don't want to do it now. And I was like, listen, I've never worked with a triple amputee before, but if you're patient with me, I'll be patient with you, and we can try to figure something out. And in 18 years of training jiu-jitsu, it was like a whole nother, like a reinvention of the sport. Even without him, he said no. And eventually he said, I'll think about it. I started just writing down notes, like 8 pages front techniques that could possibly work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never done it. I mean, leverage is different. The amount of strength in his hips. Does he have rotation? Can he move this way? And there was 8 pages. It had a scrap 6. After he decided about 4 months later, I'll give it a try. And the reason is because when he was in North Carolina, the people were willing to take his money, and they didn't give a shit about him. They just said, okay, well, we're going over full mount. And he's looking up at him going, you want me to get full mount? I don't have legs. He's like, yeah, you'll figure it out. And just walks away. So he got frustrated with it.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do it anymore. So we started doing privates every day for about 4 or 5 months until he felt comfortable enough being in a group. And once he got to understand the group, most of my clients, I got probably about 40 to 50% of my athletes are veterans. And, once he had a basic understanding of how to move and what the techniques are, positions, how to, at least one pass, one choke, one arm bar, something like that. He wanted to go into the fundamentals class, and then he stuck around for the advanced class. And then I couldn't get rid of the guy. He just kept showing up. He wanted help in the kids class, and then he'd stay with the beginner class, and then fundamentals class. And they had questions after, so he'd be there for like 5 hours a day. But it was awesome for me because it was an entirely new experience. He can't push off his leg. His muscles wrapped around a titanium rod, which is now a femur. I didn't know that. The titanium rod is lighter than your bone. I didn't know that. That means that his weight is completely different. He has one of the nastiest ankle locks. He put me in the hospital once. That modified. I use myself now because it's that effective. And he has one of the nastiest chokes because he has basically about 3/4 of his arm just above his elbow is where it's amputated on his right arm. And what he does is he uses that to hook inside between the trachea and the neck muscle. And he just uses the other hand to pull it in. So you basically just get raked inside the neck, and it actually cuts off the carotid at the same time and squeezes. It's the worst feeling choke you've ever felt. But he's actually developed their own unique style. He's competed several times. He has never asked for any special treatment. He, fights in regular IBJJF tournaments. His first match, he lost on points. He actually took the guy down, scored points on him. He has been submitted in competitions. He's, he scored points. He's lost points. But the main thing is what really kind of made this a must was we had to start We Defy Foundation because when I was actually talking to his wife told me something I'll never forget. And he hasn't been happier since the accident, since he started jiu-jitsu. A lot of people throw that term around, jiu-jitsu saves lives, but this is a real tangible case right here, like right in front of me. You know what I mean? It's not a story. it's happening right now. This is his entire perspective has changed. You know, he's happier at home. He has a sense of purpose. He wants to get stronger. Now he's lifted. So I created some modified, equipment for him so he can do pull-ups and sled pulls on the mat so he can strengthen up his hips. And, so I've become like a little mad scientist with not just techniques, but, with, strength and conditioning as well. And to me, it's evolved my game because I'm like, hey, this is a pretty cool takedown where you can actually do a fireman's carry without grabbing the arm or the leg, just using the lapel. So I started using it, and it worked for me great. It worked just the same for him. So it's transferable. He's also, because I've had to modify jiu-jitsu to fit him, his modifications evolved my game. So it was a win-win. Freaking loved it.
Wow.
Loved working.
That's such an amazing story. Just highlighting the off-the-mat benefits that Joey's getting there. It's fun to come in and work out, but really it's changing his entire life and the way he is at home and the way his attitude about things and everything. That's amazing. And then I'm also reminded of our talk just a little bit ago about knowing why you do certain things a certain way, and that knowledge that you brought to him that maybe the other place he tried didn't really have that sort of thing. You're able to change things. Okay, why are we grabbing them this way? Because we want them to move over here. Well, how else can we get them to move over here? And what can we do with that? So you're able to actually just come up with things that work for him. And then there's also there's reflecting back onto your game, and you're changing the way that you're doing because you're helping him and he's helping you with that. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, he's an amazing person all around. A lot of times you forget that he's actually in a wheelchair. The weirdest thing, once we went to dinner and we're just in this conversation, I'm like, dude, just park right there. You just missed a spot. He looks at me and he goes, really? And I looked down and I was like, oh, shit, sorry. And he was like, I don't know about it. That's actually, it's kind of a compliment, I was like, I totally forgot that he's got a hook for a hand, it didn't even occur to me. Just, no one treats it. And that's the thing, what we wanted to create was, through the foundation, was that sense of camaraderie, that sense of brotherhood that you had in the military, that everyone craved. And that everyone's, for the most part misses. A lot of people have bad experiences in the military. I get it, but, one of the things that I cherished the most in my, good times, bad times, we were together. It was that brotherhood, that camaraderie. And this is for almost selfish reasons why I started my own training facilities, because I wanted that again. I wanted, a group of guys that, fought alongside each other, that helped each other out, were there for each other. We have 2 people competing and we have 28, 29 people show up to support them. That's the that's the place that I want. So it took me a long time to grow. I wasn't very successful. I lived in my gym for 2 years in the office on a couch, but I wanted quality people, and I had no problem turning away shitbags. Sorry. But, one thing that you learn is environment always trumps will. No matter how good of a person you are, you go into an environment with a bunch of shitbags. Sorry. And we're a bunch of dudes. Okay. Bad
it's people. Okay, man.
And eventually you will become one of them, and no matter how strong your will is. And if you have room for improvement and you're around a bunch of positive people that have that positive outlook, that, they're not arrogant. They're not that type of person like, I know everything, don't you question me. And there's been a lot of times where I've had students stop me. I'm kind of like looking at the position going, you know what? I don't know, but I'll find out. I'll get back to you tomorrow. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to search around until I can find the answer. That's how it should be. And the whole, I love asking people, why do you pull guard? How many times do you work takedowns? Oh, well, that would actually mean that your instructor has to not only become familiarized, but has to become proficient enough in an entirely new, different well, you can kind of, or as a sport, because you're just standing up. You're not on the ground anymore. And so, to me, in my opinion, they're lazy. That's just pure laziness at its finest. I get my ass handed to me by my judo coach pretty much every freaking Saturday, so I can hobble back in on Monday and show, okay, see why my right hip is hurting? Let me show you guys why. Cena did this to me by doing this, and I can pass that on to them. So they're not going in unprepared, and they're not pulling the double scissor. They're not fighting to butt scoot in toward each other, which to me is the most ridiculous thing. I don't care how much excuses you give about this is sport, this is shut up. The bottom line is that it starts on your feet. Jiu-jitsu was created for fighting, not for scoring points. Right now we've evolved, we've actually went backwards and it's starting to turn into what? Well, look at judo. Judo had scissor sweeps. We can jump, or scissor takedowns, the jump in and scissor them and get them back in. They had leg locks. They had heel hooks. They had ankle locks. And then they started taking it away. And then all of a sudden the Russians started jumping in there with their sambo and double legging people and single legging them, throwing them on their back when they're trying to, do an uchimata. And they're high crotching them. And guess what? They didn't like that. So they took away that. You can't touch the legs now. And slowly, jiu-jitsu is becoming that way because of evolution. Well, you have a bunch of wrestlers that go into jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So if they don't want to, learn counters to wrestling, or their instructor doesn't want to teach that because they don't know, and they don't want to actually embarrass themselves by going, hey, I'm new, I want to learn. Or at least have that, be humble enough to say, listen, I'm good at this, I suck at this, I want to learn this. Those are the instructors that you need to go to. They're just honest. I'm not a judo black belt. By no means. I'm not even close. But I spend every chance I get to try to learn everything I can. And I go to my instructor every time. If I don't know, I answer a question, I go and ask them. And that's for jiu-jitsu. That's for anything, ankle locks. I always try to find like a Rolodex, for, hey, this guy is really, Rolly Delgado. Let me throw this video at him, see what checks out. He's really good at ankle locks. And he'll say, well, yes, no, maybe, or hell yeah, that's great. Go with it. So spread out, go away, stay away from that whole, pure lineage crap where you're jumping in a guard and, holding him in your guard for stalling and wait for time and the advantage. Try it out. Go submit him. At least go out trying.
Yeah.
That was my rant again. Sorry.
If somebody's in that school where they're not teaching takedowns, you're really limited on your options, how you're going to start a match anyway. But doing something with your guard, whether get on top to work something good or trying to actually submit somebody with your guard, those are two good options for somebody who doesn't or who isn't in that environment to learn quality takedowns from somebody. Because not everybody could.
How long have you been training?
What was that?
How long have you been training?
I've been 2002.
Okay, perfect. So, if you are bigger than your opponent, do you want to be on top or bottom?
I still like top, whether I'm bigger or smaller.
If you're smaller than your opponent,
yeah.
Do you want to be on top or bottom?
I still prefer top.
So why the fuck would someone want to jump up somebody? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why would? Damn it.
I think
it doesn't
yeah.
make sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then try to do that on concrete once. I guarantee you'll learn your lesson quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I prefer to play top, but I just sympathize with people who aren't in an environment to learn good takedowns, and they wanted to still jiu-jitsu. If you're in a small town or the team you're a part of doesn't actually have much for takedowns. I mean, I guess it's a part of you to try to learn that yourself and to develop that with your team. But it's a big area of neglect, I think, in jiu-jitsu that people have. But yeah, I prefer top, whether I'm bigger or smaller. It's a little bit funner for me. And then, like you said, like on Street Fight, I don't want to be on the bottom at all.
And what do you always go back to? Natural instinct, the thing you have done the most. So if your natural instinct is to grab somebody and then pull guard in a matter of stress, that is because that's exactly what a tournament is. It's a controlled combat environment where you actually have someone controlling the damage. If you didn't have that, where it's matted, and someone that's actually saying, okay, stop, that's enough, then you're in trouble. Because now you just got, it's like, falling off a bike, you got road rash on your ass, which you deserve. And then that, hopefully, lucky enough, that's all you get. And if you don't get, choke stomped into the ground.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take, somebody that's, Master Ken. It just takes someone that's lucky that swung, and because you're so used to sport, that's what happens. Chris Haueter brought up in the seminar that we just had, it was actually a really good point. He said the one thing I would change about IBJJF or any of the big ones, any of the terms, any of the jiu-jitsu things, and I was thinking to myself, please say pull guard, because in my place in training, you pull guard, it's 25 burpees. You pull guard in tournament, it's 100 burpees when you get back. So I was saying, please say burpees, or not burpees, please say pull guard, you say pull guard. He said, everyone should be allowed one open hand strike. That is a freaking phenomenal idea. Imagine how much that game would change if you were allowed one open hand strike. They wouldn't do it, and I thought that was brilliant. Because think about how much that game would change. That worm guard, where you have control of the power but no control of the arms. Where you have, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that's...
you would have control. It would be back. There's nothing that changes in the sport. You're still playing by sport regulations, but you're still keeping that mind in that aspect of, self-defense, as in fighting, and that warrior-type mentality that you're fighting for your life. If it ever came to that, hopefully not. But that's a brilliant idea. Think about how much that would change.
Just like how you're talking about a little bit ago, how things evolve towards the rules. I imagine guys would get really good at throwing like one really good punch or open hand strike, and not like, you don't want to miss with it, and you wouldn't want to do it in a bad position. So you would be able to really set it up and bam. That's an interesting concept.
Yep.
I've often kind of throwing around the idea of giving a guard puller a -1 point. So if they can't get on top or they can't submit their guy, they're not going to win. But the open hand, I haven't heard that one yet. So that's interesting. Interesting idea.
Oh, if you ever get a chance to talk to Chris, I promise you, save about 3 hours, and that's pretty. I spent the weekend with him, and I couldn't get enough. His whole philosophy on things, being part of the Dirty Dozen. He's seen the evolution of the sport from the very beginning in the U.S., and he's an extremely intelligent individual. I know he looks like the surfer type dude, but the man is actually extremely articulate, very, very intelligent, and just amazing his philosophy on things. I would highly, if I can give you anyone to talk to on a podcast for your show, go talk to Chris Haueter. I promise you, you will leave and you won't be able to sleep that night, because all these questions are going to be like, did I? Should I? Have I? I did. No, I didn't. Yes, I did do what he said. Oh, yes, I did. Oh. It's the craziest thing, because it really makes you think about the sport, the philosophy, the politics, everything about it is just, he's an amazing individual all around.
Yeah. Actually, Alan, I did have him on the show back in September. He was on episode 101.
Oh.
And I need to get him back. It's been a little while now, and I need to get him back on the show. So I appreciate that recommendation, and definitely I need to hit him up with an email. How you doing? Okay on time? We're running a little bit long. About ready to wrap things up?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I have a client coming in 12 minutes.
12 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, let's get.
I can have them do laps or something.
Okay. Well, I want to get some. I want to get like a statement about if somebody is thinking about doing jiu-jitsu and maybe they're amputee or something like that. What would you say to them about whether they should try it or not? And then also like where to go, the websites for everything, if that's cool. Sound good? And we'll wrap things up.
So yeah. WeDefyFoundation.org that's exactly what we're trying to create. We set it up about 8 months ago. We finally got through the IRS, and they allowed us to put it out in public. So if you go to WeDefyFoundation.org and are a combat disabled veteran as an amputee, we provide the application that you got to fill out, and you have to provide certain documentation that qualifies you for it. Once we have that in there, we try to pair you up with a school in your area. So right now we are up to, I believe, 6 schools, and we have a waiting list because there's only 3 of us right now, and we're trying to work as fast as we can to affiliate these schools, but they have to meet certain specifications. What we don't want is, like, for example, if you are a disabled veteran, you qualify, you find a school, and they're not affiliated yet, we will go to the trouble of actually calling them and say, hey, do you want to be a part of it? This is what happens. We will pay up to 6 months of privates twice a week, including their monthly tuition and 2 E's. And with a qualified instructor, it's not going to be like, oh, yeah, my friend, we do it, no problem, and then pawn them off to a blue belt. Then, for me, a third-degree black belt, it was a challenge, to try to work with an amputee. I can't imagine what a blue belt would be looking at it like you just asked them the square root or something. But they have to meet certain qualifications for that. The school has to meet, and the instructor has to meet certain qualifications. And then the more affiliates, schools that we have, the more accessible the athletes that are disabled looking to have jiu-jitsu for therapy will be available to them. So that's the entire intent, is to get the more the better. Completely unaffiliated. We're not biased to one or the other. We're not with Gracie Baja. We're not with Alliance. We're not with any of these. We welcome everybody. Now, just because you're with Gracie Baja, for example, we have Marvin, a former retired first sergeant in the Army. He opened up Gracie Baja Sugarland. He is part of We Defy Foundation. It doesn't mean that Gracie Baja nationwide is part of We Defy Foundation. Each one is individually assessed, evaluated, and then accepted or declined depending on what the status is. But we encourage everyone to try to apply, because there are some things that, for example, one guy was just missing a handicap parking spot. And he's like, man, I don't qualify. Thanks for it. No. We'll put a waiver in the can you get that done? And he's like, yeah, but not for a couple of months. I was like, no problem. Just put your application in. Once you have it done, we'll sign you off. You'll be accepted. That's all you're missing. That's it. Well, you got that. And so we'll work with them. The more affiliate schools we can get qualified, the more people we can get in there, the more people will come out of the woodwork instead of staying home, on pills, drinking, and, worst comes to worst, ending their own lives, just from being segregated and feeling that, they're alone. This way they're in their own environment. They get to learn. They have goals. They have that sense of camaraderie like they had before in the military. They have people that suffer from the same problems. They have someone to talk to. And you know what the best part is? It's the best type of therapy there is. When you're getting choked, you're not thinking about your freaking bills. right?
Yeah.
You're thinking about, this guy's got a freaking noose around my neck. You know, boyfriend problems, girlfriend problems. You know, Octavio Coto said it the best way. Jiu-jitsu is the most dynamic form of meditation there is. I agree 100%, because you're not thinking about anything else when you're getting your, you know, arm bar, you know, someone's cranking on your arm or, you know, your ankle, whatever it is. Your focus is on that pain there. Everything else is out the window. So the more veterans that we can bring out, let them know, you know, and get the word out for them, the better it's going to be. And again, there's no separation and or favoritism to any organization. We're completely non-biased, completely unaffiliated. We welcome everyone that's qualified.
Are you more looking for? Do you find a student and try to match them up with a school? Like, hey, let's look in your area and see if anybody be qualified and be willing to do this. Or do people come to you and say, hey, how could I get to where I could be part of this with my school? Which way does it go?
Actually, right now we're trying to get both.
Okay.
Right now we're at the stage where since we just got started, the more schools that we can certify that are reputable places that they can go, they can start advertising that they are We Defy Foundation affiliate, and they can get the word out. And then so we have 10 of those going out. Those 10 are advertising, because now it's just right now it's just us. So, and then we have, well, within the last 2 months we've had 5 schools affiliated. So now we're starting like different states: Florida, South Texas, about to have Oklahoma, Washington. You know, we're trying to get, you know, something where any veteran for example, in Redding, California, we talked to the Tanner brothers. They were excited about this, so we're trying to get them affiliated. Even out there, I mean, it's out in the boonies, you know, trying to get them affiliated so they don't have to drive an hour to an affiliated school. They can, you know, find something, you know, within 10, 15 minutes. So the more we can, you know, get the word out there and get them affiliated, the better it's going to be. There's really the contracts that we have. People kind of always worried about the contracts. The contract protects the school as well as the foundation for the IRS, because there's certain things that have to be met and certain records that have to be kept in order for us to be able to sponsor that athlete with their tuition and the money for privates and geese and so forth. So it's a win-win for everybody. Then we have this a link on the website from We Defy Foundation of lists of schools, and soon we're going to have the states, and then within the states we're going to have the cities, and then they can just, you know, go on there and find a place where they're nearby, and hey, when you start training jiu-jitsu, see what this whole fad is about, and then they get hooked, and 20 years later they're on the podcast talking to you. Hopefully.
They won't have to wait that long. Yeah, that sounds great, and I'll put links to everything on the show notes for people to find and get a hold of you if that's what they're looking to do. Do you have any final words for the audience?
I'd definitely like to, you know, definitely Mission 22. Get a chance to go on to mission22.com. NewStiffYoung.com has been a huge supporter for us. Shoyerol, those guys, believe it or not, as quiet and laid back as they are, they have, and I don't know if I should be mentioning this on a podcast, but they have, like, sincerely, like, out of pocket, just slipped geese here, you know, Joey have a gi, you know, just here, make sure he's taken care of, you know, and they've very unselfish, very giving people. And I'm not just being biased about that. There's other companies out there. Hold Fast is another one. Gameness is one that has been dying to get involved. They're very, very, very avid about it. I know I'm going to forget somebody. I'm going to kick myself in the ass, and someone's going to kick my ass for forgetting. But I love you all. I'm sorry if I forgot you. I've been hitting the head a lot, and that's my excuse. I'm sticking with it. And I apologize for about last week. That was, again, I've been hitting the head a lot, and I tend to forget. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you were on. It is very motivating, and it's good to hear what you're doing and what you've been up to. So thanks a lot, Alan, and I'll keep in touch with you.
All right, thank you, sir.
We'd like to thank Alan Shebaro for taking his time and talking to us. But I definitely encourage everybody to go to WeDefyFoundation.org and check out their website. They're dedicated to improving lives of our military disabled combat veterans through jiu-jitsu and physical training. And what I just think's great is, the high level knowledge that Alan has to be able to teach jiu-jitsu. You almost have to these military veterans that are coming back, each person you have to tailor almost like a curriculum to each person, because some of these guys are disabled where you may not be able to dry an arm or grab a wrist. So you've got to change your curriculum up and your teaching methods up. But, I just think this is just an incredible foundation. And I definitely urge everybody to go check out WeDefyFoundation.org, and we'll put a link to it there. Absolutely.
It's doing great things. And we've said, people say, BJJ saved my life. This is a real situation where BJJ could actually save somebody's life. So definitely worth checking out and looking into. And we got all the links for you there. Gary, this has been an interesting week for me, my friend.
Why? What have you had going on this week, Byron?
You ever heard of the show Shark Tank?
Yes, I have.
Okay. If a lot of our international audience, they may not have a show called Shark Tank, but they a lot of times will have a similar show. Our friend Denise from Germany said they have it's called Lion's Den or Lion's Cave. Basically, it's a show where inventors, people who own small businesses, go and present an idea to a small group of business people, and they'll tear it apart, talk about it, and they'll try to negotiate with you and get the best possible deal. And if they like your business, they'll go in partnership with you, and if they don't, they'll run you out of there like an idiot. Well, Gary, believe it or not, this guy had an invention and went to Shark Tank with it.
What guy did?
This guy you're talking to right now, buddy.
You did?
Oh yeah, I invented. It's just audio, so it's it's real hard to understand. But basically, what I had invented was a broomstick with a clip that I glued to it, because there's not enough room in our gyms to be having brooms laying all over the place. But we do need to sweep up. So what you do is you take your gi and you clip it to that stick, and you could use that as a broom. It's half as efficient as a regular broom, but it also takes up 30% of the
Twice
space.
as much space.
It actually is a little less space. So that's where my selling point is. I go in there, I talk with these people, and try to work a deal. So we're lucky enough to get to share that with you today. So here is my appearance on Shark Tank. Hello, Sharks. My name is Byron. I'm the less good-looking half of the BJJ Brick podcast. I'm here today because I have an invention for jiu-jitsu gyms all over the world. All over the world, gyms need to be swept up and kept clean, but nobody has the type of space available to be carrying brooms all over the place. So what I have done is I have a broomstick handle, and I have attached with hot glue a clip, and when it's time to sweep up the gym, you simply take off your gi top and clip that to the broom handle, and you could use that as a broom. It works very well. It gets half of all the dirt swept off into a general area, and it's really going to help keep everybody clean and make training easier and just a cleaner environment. So I'm happy to hear what you guys wanted out of this deal. I'm hoping for $40,000, and I'll give you 25% of this broom company. Of course, this is not talking about the podcast itself. That's supported through Patreon and our friends there. That's where I'm looking at is a $40,000 for 25% of this new broom company. Also, you doing this might even help you improve your sweeps on the mat.
I'm trying to understand your vision for this business. Are we going to make brooms and start selling them to all kinds of stores? Or are we going to go and try to go to big broom companies and sell them our brooms so they can make it?
I think all we have to do is glue the clip on to the broom handle and sell that to maybe gi manufacturers and let them handle it from there. That's why I'm here. I need your expert help. and I don't really know the best route for this.
The real money, if you could sell it direct to the consumer, you could build a $100 million business. On a single product? Oh, sure.
What would you like to retail this at?
Well, I know you guys want me to do my math ahead of time, and I did. I found the broom handles available for $20, and the clip, that cost about $5 a clip, and the glue is probably about $1 per broom. So I think we could retail this right around $15. That'd be a great price point. And of course, that does not include the gi, which the customer will provide their own gi top. Now, I know you've created FUBU, but you guys don't make gis, so I don't know if you would be good for my company.
Whether you like FUBU or not, I created in the basement, and everybody on the damn planet knows
Everybody
it.
has that
Nobody
story.
knows what you did.
Are you kidding?
I have branded a stinking pair of jeans globally, and I will do that with the broom. You see, that's the difference.
The broom and the clothing have nothing to do with each other.
He's not even letting me speak. Imagine what he's going to do to you.
So I know that your experience with FUBU would help me a lot in this company. That's maybe we could use this broom with just the gi pants, because I know your experience with the jeans. But what kind of offer do you have for me?
I'm bringing $75,000 for 33%, but we'll create an entire company.
For the record, I'm definitely out. Let me tell you why. Because I don't see you as the kind of guy who could go through a finish line. Honest to God.
Ouch, Barbara, that does hurt in the feelings there. I do value your opinion greatly, and I know you're right about that, because my wife was telling me the same thing on the drive over here to the Shark Tank. Are there any other offers for me?
I'm going to give an offer. You came in asking for $40,000, 25%. I'm going to bump your 40 a little bit, but I'm not going to go to 75, because at the end of the day, my $50,000 offer for 25% is going to be your best deal, because we're going to make millions more over time, because this has to go on television, and you know that. Do you agree with me?
Well, I figured I would just talk about it on the podcast. I don't know. I'm sure television would be great if that's what you think.
Okay, so we got to start with TV. You need a license all around the world.
You think this could sell globally? I'm really excited about that.
One shark is out, but the others are in a feeding frenzy.
Oh, man, there are a lot of deals. I don't know what to do.
You better slow down and think. You're a nice guy.
Let me finish with this. I don't want to go to war with you, my friend. You bring some value to the table. And you're the TV guy I do know.
Let's go
50-50. Let's go for... Barbara, if you screw this up for me, I'm going to spank you like a baby seal. Now listen.
Oh, it is on now. But in all seriousness, maybe I will call my wife, or at least talk to Gary about this. This is a big decision. He's a lot better with the numbers than I am.
Let's get back to business here. 50-50. Kevin, let's stop fighting. Because I'm going to win this fight if we start it. You know, Kevin, I respect you, but this is a product I want to be able to control, because, see, I want to put him as the face of this product. Don't let that vanity thing work. You're going to be the guy on the shopping channels. Your face can be on the box selling this product.
Well, that's awfully kind of you to offer to let me put my face on the box of this. But my mom has told me numerous times that I do have a face just for podcasting specifically, just the audio type of face, not really one that's really pleasing to the eye, or one that's for people to visualize. So I don't know if that's the best route for us to take. Let's see if we can get some more of you sharks to partner up together, and we can have like a super team.
I don't need any partners on this deal,
Shane,
okay?
I'm with Kevin. I think you're going to need more money. I'd like to come in on the licensing deal, because I think that is the only route that makes sense to me. I'll put up another 40 for that same 20%.
We're at 80 for 20?
Yeah.
Let's lift it to 25%.
Okay, so 80,000 for 25%, because I think you're going to need more cash. Life is very simple. Two guys want to build brooms. Two guys want to make money.
Shane, you know what? We understand product, and we will get also licensing once we get to a comfortable level. What do you want to do? Let's do something.
80,000 for 25% of the company?
Correct. 80,000, 25% of the company. He does the infomercials. I do product to stores. We help build the brand itself.
My gut is telling me the $80,000 is just more than I need. So maybe we keep the same percent and just bump it back down to $40,000 or $50,000. I don't know. I'm getting a little confused here. I think I'm gonna call my wife. Maybe I'll call Gary. I'm gonna call my wife.
I want to talk to your wife. Get her on the phone. I want to talk to her.
I'm going to try to call her, but she usually doesn't pick up for me. I don't have a lot of luck. So, yeah, she's not picking up the line. I'm just going to have to go for it. Let's not do the 80,000. We'll bump it back down to 40 for the same percent you guys were talking about. And let's do this. I'm excited.
All right. Deal. Okay.
Good decision.
Good job. Thank you.
I knew you were, man.
All right. Thanks. All right. Dead man sweeping.
All right. Well, that was my little adventure being in the Shark Tank. I see some of my faults where I negotiated down in price, but did not negotiate down in percentage-wise, so that was kind of a mistake on my part. But expect this sweet broom clip to be appearing all over the place.
You know, when you first started telling me about that, before I heard what happened on Shark Tank, I thought it was the worst idea ever. I was like, people are going to actually drag their gi that they spend a lot of money on the floor. And I was like, the only thing that I really agreed with out of everything you said is you're the less better looking of the two. That was the only thing I agreed with.
I had to tell him like it was. You know, if one of us is going to end up being on TV, it's going to be Gary.
I've been on TV before, but normally it's just on the 10 most wanted of local county.
Well, we'll get into that in another episode, I'm sure, Gary. But that was my little experiment in Shark Tank. Let us know if you wanted to hear about more Shark Tank ideas that we have. Next week, we don't have a Shark Tank, but we do have a Matt Tales episode for you, and that'll be a good one. I promise you that.
I tell you, this is a Matt Tale that'll scare some people from training. So definitely tune in next week.
Yeah.
But check us out on social media. We're on YouTube. We are on Facebook, which is where we're on most of the time. But we're on Twitter. We're on Reddit. So check us out and tell all your friends about us. Let your friends know about us. And the best form of flattery or whatever we could get is when you tell your training partners, tell your friends about us. Because if you're listening to this podcast, odds are that most of your friends enjoy jiu-jitsu or the great comedy that Byron and I bring to the table, which is probably horrible. But we're just happy you listen to us.
We just have fun with the show, Gary, and if people happen to think it's funny, well, then that's their fault.
Yeah, not everybody's as funny as you and I.
My wife, I make one good joke to my wife about once a month, but I laugh at my jokes constantly that I make to her, so I'm having a good time.
Well, the problem is I think she doesn't laugh all the time because she doesn't think you can get to the finish line. I think that might be the problem.
I'm not the type of guy that would finish.
Yeah.
Wow. That did hurt. That did hurt.
Yep.
But if you enjoyed the show and you're interested in supporting us, we would greatly appreciate you checking us out on Patreon. There's a video in the show notes, or you can go to bjjbrick.com and check out the video link there. I'll explain what's going on with Patreon. It's basically a listener-supported thing. If you support us at the $3 level per episode, I'll mail you out a gi patch. And that's basically anywhere in the world. So our international audience is now able to get a gi patch for supporting the show. So that is awesome, and we're looking forward to that. We did have a review recently on iTunes, a few weeks back anyway, and they talked about getting a gi patch. We can't mail you a gi patch unless we know where you live, buddy. So if you write us a review and you want us to send you out a smaller gi patch in the mail, do send us an email following it up saying, hey, that was me, and we'll get back with you and figure out where to send it. So I can't send a gi patch through iTunes, although it would be nice.
You know, I think some of the people listen to Byron and know all the talents he has, and they probably think he can read minds. But actually, Byron is not very good at that, so you definitely have to let us know where you live.
But speaking of where you live, Gary, we live here in Wichita, Kansas. We're a little north of Alan Shebaro, but if you happen to be traveling through or you're in the area, you want to check us out on the mat, you want to roll with us, we'd be happy to have you. And we've had a few guests here lately stop by on summer vacation. That's been a lot of fun. And it could be you next. I don't know. We don't know who's going to be next, Gary, but we're definitely open for that. And give us an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com or hit us up on our Facebook page. 2 easy ways to get a hold of us.
Yep, we've had Denise in town from Germany for the summer, so we've been training with her a couple times a week and definitely learned a lot from her. And then we had Brett coming in for the 4th of July week there from Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So he came in and schooled me on the mat as usual and taught me some stuff. So thank you, Denise and Brett.
Yep, always good times getting people that we don't know yet on the mat and getting to learn about them there. So next week, Gary.
What do we have next week, Byron, besides Mat Tales?
We have Matt Tails. We have Shannon Kitchen. He's on the show. He's a good friend of our friend, Brian Freeman. And he's going to share his experiences, his journey on the mat. Shannon has a spinal cord injury. He's paralyzed from the belly button down. He's also legally blind. And he's just in love with jiu-jitsu, so he's going to share with us his story next week. So happy to bring you that. Very inspirational story and very motivating. All right, Gary, well, that wraps us up. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.